The sun over Riyadh burned like a furnace, merciless and unyielding. Heat shimmered off the marble walls of the newly built financial district, where towers of steel and glass rose as if to compete with the desert sky. It was here, in this place of oil wealth and financial ambition, that two very different worlds were about to collide. Cristiano Ronaldo had become not just a footballer, not just an icon, but a living symbol of what money could create. His move to Saudi Arabia was more than a transfer. It was a statement, a proclamation that the modern world belonged to those who could buy anything, or anyone. His face was on billboards, his name on jerseys, his presence sold as both glory and distraction. For many, he was proof that fame could be eternal if you had the right sponsors. But for Traoré, Ronaldo was not just a player. He was a reflection of a system that had turned sport into spectacle, competition into commerce, and heroes into brands. And tonight, in the heart of the desert kingdom, he would confront him. The private conference room inside the stadium was quiet, soundproofed, a chamber where contracts worth billions were signed and where whispered deals were never meant to leave the walls. Ronaldo sat at the head of a polished black table, his posture perfect, his expression composed but alert. He was used to interviews, to being challenged, but this was no journalist, no fan. Traoré entered like a storm. No suit, no entourage, no cameras, just presence. His eyes burned with a weight of questions that had no easy answers. Cristiano, Traoré began, his voice low but cutting through the silence. Do you ever wonder what your name really means now? Is it a man, or a corporation? Is it you, or is it the system that owns you? Ronaldo leaned back, folding his arms. He had faced rivals on the pitch, critics in the media, politicians and businessmen who tried to use him. But something about Traoré was different. This wasn't envy. This wasn't fandom. This was confrontation on a level deeper than football. My name, Ronaldo said evenly, is a legacy. It is sweat, discipline, sacrifice. I gave everything to this game. What I have now, I earned it. Traoré stepped closer, his voice tightening. Earned, yes. But for whom? For the boy who kicked a ball on Madeira streets? Or for the billion-dollar machine that feeds on your every move? They buy your smile, your goals, your body. And in return, they buy silence. Tell me, how much of Cristiano Ronaldo belongs to Cristiano Ronaldo anymore? The words cut, and for the first time Ronaldo didn't respond immediately. He thought of contracts, endorsements, the clauses that dictated where he could appear, what he could say, even what water bottle he could drink from at a press conference. He thought of his own image, how it had been weaponized by states, corporations, and agendas he didn't control. Still, his pride rose like armor. You speak like the world is chains, Ronaldo said sharply. But I see freedom. I built this life. I came from nothing, and now millions look up to me. That is power. Power. Traoré shot back. No, Cristiano. That is dependency. Look outside. He pointed toward the window, where the Riyadh skyline glimmered. These towers, this stadium. Your salary, it comes from oil wealth, from politics dressed as sport, from a system that hides its machinery behind the shine of your name. You are a shield, a distraction. And every child who wears your jersey is not just cheering for you. They are being trained to worship wealth, to chase illusions. Ronaldo's jaw tightened. He was not naive. He knew money and politics were bound together in football. He knew his move to Saudi Arabia had been criticized as sports washing. But hearing it said like this, without the filters of media spin, made it feel heavier. Traoré's voice grew louder, echoing off the walls. What happens when the cheers fade, Cristiano? When the next star comes, when your body can no longer run the pitch? Do you think the system will remember you as a man, or as an expired product? Money does not immortalize, it erases. And yet, you hold it up as if it were salvation. The air in the room grew tense, thick with something unspoken. Ronaldo's fingers drummed against the table, a subtle rhythm betraying his agitation. His mind raced back through decades of discipline, the hunger, the hours of training, the sacrifices. Yes, money had come. Yes, he had become a brand. But wasn't that the price of greatness? You think I'm blind? Ronaldo snapped. You think I don't know how the world works? I chose this path. I turned my name into strength. If people use it, if states, corporations, media, then let them. I cannot control everything, but I can control what I built, and no one can take that away. Traoré leaned forward, his voice almost a whisper now, but sharp enough to pierce. Control. Tell me, Cristiano, when was the last time you said something that was truly yours? Not scripted, not packaged, not polished for sponsors. When was the last time you spoke as a man, not as a brand? The silence that followed was suffocating. For once, Ronaldo had no ready answer. Outside, the distant roar of a stadium crowd rose like thunder, chanting his name. Inside, the clash was quieter but far more dangerous. This was not a duel of fists or goals. It was a war of definitions, man versus machine, freedom versus image, reality versus illusion. And it had only just begun. Stadium of shadows, Ronaldo under the spotlight. The Bernabeu had never been this silent. The stadium, usually roaring with chants of glory and rivalry, now stood as a cavern of echoes. Its empty seats curved like a colosseum of forgotten gods, while floodlights pierced through the night, illuminating the green pitch as though it were a battlefield, prepared for a duel of philosophies rather than fate. The Spanish sky above stretched in indifference, dotted with faint stars that watched history unfold with their timeless apathy. At the center of the field stood Cristiano Ronaldo, his posture regal, chest broad, the posture of a man who knew his body was both weapon and brand. His tailored tracksuit shimmered under the artificial light, a design not meant for sweat but for spectacle. He was not here as the boy from Madeira, not as the hungry child who chased balls through the streets of Funchal. He was here as the empire he had become, logos stitched onto fabric, a walking economy. Across from him stood Traoré, less adorned but infinitely heavier with the gravity of defiance. His coat was simple, his boots scuffed, and yet when he stepped onto the turf, the grass itself seemed to bend toward his presence. His eyes locked on Ronaldo, and though there was no ball between them, the world understood that this was the greatest match the pitch had ever witnessed. Cristiano, Traoré began, his voice carrying not just across the empty stadium, but echoing through decades of inequality. You are more than a man. You are a monument of what money can build when talent is chained to capital. But tell me, what happens when the monument casts a shadow too wide, covering the dreams of millions who will never stand where you stand? Ronaldo's jaw flexed. He had faced defenders who would break bones to stop him. He had faced hostile crowds that spat insults and flares alike. But never had he faced words that pressed against him like this. He replied with the smooth confidence of a man who had long been trained to answer not as a human, but as a brand ambassador. I earned everything, Ronaldo said, his accent rich with the traces of Portugal but ironed by years of media training. From nothing, I built this. Every hour on the pitch, every drop of sweat, I am proof that the system works, that dreams can be bought with discipline. Traoré stepped closer, his boots crunching against the immaculate turf. No, Cristiano, you are proof that the system uses dreams. You are its perfect poster boy. You are talent, yes. Dedication, yes. But the system doesn't sell your story. It sells the fantasy that every poor child can become you. And in that fantasy, it hides the truth that the ladder you climbed has been pulled up for the rest. The floodlights seemed to hum louder as though amplifying the tension. Ronaldo's eyes narrowed. For the first time, the stadium legend felt like he was being marked by an invisible defender he could not dribble past. People need hope, Ronaldo countered. When I run onto the pitch, I give them escape. 90 minutes where their hunger, their pain, their broken homes fade. Isn't that worth something? To be a symbol? Traoré's reply cut sharper than any tackle. A symbol, yes. But of what? You have become a currency. Every goal you scored turned into advertisement space. Every victory into shareholder profit. You didn't escape the system, Cristiano. You became its strongest striker. And in doing so, you play not against offenders, but against your own people. Ronaldo's breathing deepened. His pride bristled, his instinct to fight rising. But beneath it was something else, a flicker of doubt. He thought of his mother cleaning other people's homes, of his father drowning in bottles, of his own barefoot sprints on a cracked island road. He had clawed out of poverty, but had he simply been polished into a diamond? The system could auction to the highest bidder? Still, Ronaldo lifted his chin. What would you have me do? Abandon it all? Throw away the contracts, the trophies, the legacy? My success tells every child it's possible. No, Traoré said, his voice heavy with conviction. Your success tells every child that unless they become you, they are nothing. That their worth is measured by market value, by sponsorships, by whether they can be consumed. That is not inspiration, Cristiano, it is chains disguised as dreams. The words lingered like smoke. Ronaldo turned his gaze upward to the empty stands, imagining the crowd that wasn't there. Millions of faces, chanting his name, buying his shirts, worshipping not the man but the myth. And yet here stood Traoré, dismantling the myth piece by piece. Silence spread again, broken only by the distant hum of the city beyond the stadium. Finally, Ronaldo spoke, softer this time. And what would you replace it with, Traoré? If not the system, then what? People live through me. I give them joy. Traoré's lips curved into a grim smile. Joy that fades when the lights go out. I speak of dignity, Cristiano. Of a world where worth is not tied to how fast you run or how many goals you score, but to the humanity we share. But the system fears that dignity. It thrives on spectacle. And you, my friend, are its brightest, most profitable spectacle. The floodlights flickered as though the very electricity trembled under the weight of the exchange. Ronaldo shifted, the perfect athlete standing suddenly, like a man unsure if the field beneath him was solid. The duel was not of speed, nor strength. It was a duel of truths. And for the first time, Cristiano Ronaldo realized he might not be the one scoring tonight. The reckoning, between legacy and power. The night in Lisbon had grown darker, as though the sky itself refused to bear witness to what was unfolding inside the grand marble hall. The echoes of their conversation seemed to linger in the air, not just between Traoré and Ronaldo, but in the consciousness of everyone present, the journalists, the aides, the silent security staff, even the marble statues that lined the hall like sentinels from another era. Ronaldo stood by the panoramic window that overlooked the city. The Tagus River glittered faintly under the moonlight, its calm waters in stark contrast to the storm raging in the room. His reflection stared back at him, chiseled, famous, adored. And yet, for the first time in years, he looked like a man questioning the very foundation of what he had built. Behind him, Traoré's voice cut through the silence like a blade. Cristiano, do you see it now? Your image is not yours. Your empire is not yours. The millions you think you control, the influence you think you wield, they were all granted to you under conditions. Conditions set by a system that ensures no one ever truly escapes its grip. Ronaldo turned slowly, his eyes narrowed. He was no stranger to criticism. He had endured it his entire career. Yet this was different. This was not about missed penalties, rivalries with Messi, or debates over his age. This was about something deeper. The very architecture of global power that had turned him into both an idol and a prisoner. 1. The currency of fame. Conditions. Ronaldo's voice was steady but sharp. Do you know what it took to reach here? The nights without sleep, the sweat, the discipline, the sacrifices? Nothing was given to me, Traoré. I earned every goal, every title, every ounce of respect. Traoré nodded, almost respectfully, before stepping closer. You earned your talent, your discipline, your relentless hunger. But what about the stage on which you performed? Who built the stadiums? Who signed the contracts? Who owned the networks that broadcast your victories across continents? You were chosen to shine, Cristiano, but the system made sure that even your shine would serve its purpose. The words stung. Ronaldo clenched his jaw, gripping the edge of the marble table as though it could anchor him. Traoré pressed on. You became the perfect product, handsome, disciplined, marketable. A man who symbolized the dream of rising from nothing to everything. But tell me, when a boy in Guinea, or Brazil, or Bangladesh buys a jersey with your name, where does that money go? To his dreams? Or to corporations that see you as a logo, not a man? The hall was silent. Even the cameras, positioned discreetly, seemed to hesitate. Ronaldo finally spoke, softer this time. And what if you're right? What if I am part of their system? At least I gave people hope. I gave them something to believe in. Traoré's reply was immediate, almost fierce. Hope without change is illusion. You inspire them to chase your shadow, while the world devours their reality. 2. The mirror of power. The exchange had shifted from confrontation to revelation. Ronaldo paced across the hall, his movements precise, like on the pitch. His eyes were fixed on the floor, as though searching for answers written in the veins of marble beneath his feet. I know I am a brand, he admitted at last. I know that every photo, every sponsorship, every goal has been packaged and sold. But what choice did I have? Refuse and disappear? Refuse and lose everything I fought for? You speak of freedom, Traoré, but do you know what it costs to be free in this world? Traoré stepped forward, his tone quieter now, but no less piercing. Yes, Cristiano, it costs everything. Freedom is not comfort. It is sacrifice. You have wealth, power, and a voice that reaches billions. But what have you done with it? Built hotels? Endorsed banks? Sold watches? You could have torn open the facade, exposed the system. Instead, you became its jewel. Ronaldo froze. For a brief moment, his eyes betrayed something: guilt, perhaps, or a longing for absolution. I wanted to give my children security, Ronaldo whispered. I wanted to protect my family. Isn't that what any man wants? And yet, Traoré countered, by protecting your own, you strengthen the chains that bind millions of others. A father to your children, yes, but what about the children who see you as a god? Do you not owe them truth? 3. Clash of worlds. The tension in the room was unbearable now. Both men stood face to face, one the embodiment of discipline, fame, and personal glory, the other the voice of rebellion, sacrifice, and systemic defiance. Cristiano, Traoré said, almost pleading, you are proof that an individual can rise above circumstance. But do you not see? They use you as proof that the system works. They say, look at Ronaldo. If he made it, anyone can. And so billions keep running on the treadmill of false hope, never realizing the machine is rigged. Ronaldo's eyes blazed. And what would you have me do? Denounce everything? Throw away the life I built? You speak of sacrifice like it is easy. But you, what have you given up? What do you know of carrying the weight of millions, who expect you to be perfect every second? Traoré's answer was sharp, like lightning cutting the night. I gave up silence. And silence, Cristiano, is the easiest life of all. I chose to fight, not for perfection, but for truth. The words hung heavy, like the final whistle of a match whose outcome no one could change. 4. Breaking point. Ronaldo stepped closer, his voice trembling, not with fear, but with emotion. You think I don't feel it? You think I don't know what I've become? Every time I see my face on a billboard, every time I sign a contract, a part of me wonders if I sold my soul. But what is the alternative, Traoré? To fall into obscurity? To be forgotten? Traoré's eyes softened. For the first time, he looked not at a rival, but at a man. Obscurity is not death. Forgetting yourself, that is death. You have lived for glory, Cristiano. But glory fades. What remains is whether you used your power to bend the world, or let the world bend you. The silence that followed was unlike the others. It was not tense, nor hostile. It was contemplative, as though both men stood on the edge of something greater than themselves. 5. The legacy question. Finally, Ronaldo sank into one of the leather chairs, his posture less like a king and more like a man stripped bare. His voice was almost fragile. Do you think it's too late for me? Traoré looked at him, the flicker of a rare smile on his lips. It is never too late for truth, but it is always too late for silence. Ronaldo closed his eyes, the weight of decades pressing down. He thought of the boy from Madeira, the one who ran barefoot on the island streets, who dreamed not of brands or stadiums but of the pure joy of football. That boy was still inside him, buried under layers of fame and contracts. Could he be freed? Traoré's hand rested on the table. Legacy is not what they carve on statues or print on shirts. Legacy is whether the system fears your name when you are gone. The words hit Ronaldo harder than any tackle he had endured. 6. The final exchange. The hall grew colder, as though history itself leaned in to listen. Ronaldo stood once more, his back straight, his voice calmer. Perhaps I cannot undo what has been done. Perhaps I am too entangled in this machine. But if there is one thing I know, it is that people listen when I speak. And maybe, just maybe, I can choose what I say next. Traoré nodded slowly. Then speak truth. Not the truth they pay you to sell, but the truth that breaks chains. For once, Cristiano, play not for the crowd, but for humanity. The two men locked eyes, warriors of different battles, united for a fleeting moment in something larger than victory or fame. Outside, the city of Lisbon slept, unaware that within its heart, a conversation had taken place that could ripple far beyond football, far beyond fame, into the very soul of a system built on power, money, and silence. 7. Closing image. Ronaldo walked back to the window, staring at his reflection one last time. This time, he did not see the idol, the brand, the legend. He saw the boy from Madeira, barefoot and dreaming. And for the first time in years, he allowed himself to wonder, not what he had achieved, but what he could still change. Behind him, Traoré's voice carried like a prophecy. The system fears only those who choose truth over comfort. Choose wisely, Cristiano. The world is watching. The hall fell silent. The world outside kept spinning. But inside that marble chamber, something irreversible had shifted.